Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Hoops with Noops. Of course, I am Alex Noops Christensen. I am here with you every Monday and Friday on video, and every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in written form. Just a quick warning and a heads up before we get started. You may be able to hear I'm a bit nasally, and I'm just getting over a cold here. I think I'll be okay, but what the heck? In case I do anything gross, go ahead and put your Twitter handle down there in the bottom in a comment, and I'll get back to you and make sure that you get all my NBA picks over the weekend. Those are picks that usually only go into the FTN Bets Discord. So, again, if I cough or do anything too bad, I'd be happy to give something back. I think you earned it for having to sit through that. And of course, if you're smart enough to already be in the FTN Bets Discord, we'll figure something else out. Happy to do something special for you guys. Again, if I do anything too gross, put a comment down there in the bottom with your Twitter handle. We'll try to find a way to make the best of the situation. With that in mind, let's get started. Of course, happy Friday. We're back to regular season NBA basketball. There are injury concerns up and down the slate today. However, a little more of an interesting thing here. We have 8 games tonight. I believe 5, if not 6, involve teams that played each other just on Wednesday. Historically speaking, if you're an NBA fan for years at this point, you remember teams are always play a different team every night during the regular season. You rarely see them stay in the same city and play the same team or, face the same opponent again back-to-back nights. But in what I think was a really smart move by the NBA to not only help with travel fatigue, but allow teams to, maybe have a second game in a row against an opponent to develop some adjustments and maybe make things more interesting. They started to include these 2-game series into the schedule. So we now have about a little over a year now. I believe last year was the first year we had these, what we call 2-game series, if you will, in the regular season. There hasn't been anything too glaring from a betting perspective that stood out in terms of patterns. For example, you would think maybe just blindly bet the team that lost the first game and the second game, or, what people call the zigzag theory, which happens a lot in the playoffs. Generally hasn't been sharp in the postseason as markets have adjusted, and it hasn't been too sharp in these 2-game series. So nothing really too much sticks out, but be sure you keep an eye on those games, and let's see if we can sort of find anything going forward. Because, again, just our second season of these 2-game series, so not a huge sample size yet. We've got 8 games to get to tonight. There are 3 in which I have bets, and, of course, we'll cover the other 5 in Not for Noops when we get there. Let's get started here tonight with the New Orleans Pelicans at the Charlotte Hornets. The Pelicans did well for us the other night in their first of their 3-game road trip to some of the worst teams in the NBA. And I just want to look over quickly and make sure that I get these 3 teams right. They were able to beat the Washington Wizards by 20 on Wednesday. We had them laying the 7 points, which was great. Again, that was in the FTN Bets Discord chat. There was no Hoops for Noops on that Wednesday. So, take a look at the ticker there. Always a discount on the FTN products, which are great. Again, there's that Discord channel, all the tools, all the data. It's just a huge suite of stuff. It's awesome. But happy for the Pelicans there again. Beat Washington by 20 on Wednesday. They play in Charlotte tonight and then San Antonio on Friday. I guess they couldn't fit a trip to Detroit in there. Who knows? I'm sure they'll get to it eventually. But I've said it here in this space and written about it. The Pelicans are a fantastic basketball team as long as they're mostly healthy. Zion Williamson missed on Wednesday, but even without him, again, there's still Brandon Ingram, Valanciunas, McCollum. You've got guys like Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado that are 2 of the better perimeter defenders in the NBA, and both are shooting well from three-point land. It's really a top to bottom, a really good team. They just got Trey Murphy back. This team can do everything. They can go big. They can go small. There's lots of weird lineups. They have good shooting, good rim attackers, good passers. Defensively speaking, again, I mentioned the perimeter defenders. They've got rim protectors and size at just about every position. It's everything you could really want from a basketball team. Again, laying 7 points here in Charlotte, okay, sounds good to me. I'm happy to do it. I mean, if Zion Williamson is in, great. If Zion Williamson is in, I have this at 12. If Zion's in, I have this at 13. If he's out, I have this at 9, almost 10 points. And again, I don't think my model is adjusting well enough for how bad a team like Charlotte is. It's hard to evaluate. It's hard to have a model that knows how truly bad some of the terrible teams are because, again, data, you're always kind of looking at a tight base and you're trying to exclude some of those outliers, but outliers exist over a long period of time and things adjust as you go forward. Again, I think, those numbers get sharper, but we're still in the first 25, 30% of the season. So I think there is a little bit more of an edge here than my numbers are showing. From a matchup perspective, again, the Pelicans are better at every position. Charlotte is without Mark Williams tonight. It is just the worst night ever to have your only center be Nick Richards. It's going to be really tough for Charlotte. So happy to lay the 7 here with the Pelicans team that has done well before. And again, if they're in San Antonio, just a quick heads up, if they're laying less than 10 points in San Antonio and everybody but Zion's healthy, or just one of Ingram and McCollum or Zion are out, I'm happy to lay that number again. So let's keep betting the Pelicans until the market is, happy enough to put some double digits. Again, this should be at least 10, and I can make a case it should be as high as 13. Next game up here, the Los Angeles Lakers. This is one of those aforementioned 2-game series. The Lakers won by 3 in San Antonio the other night, and you might be thinking to yourself, wow, that must have been a great performance by the Spurs. How could they only lose by 3 to the Lakers? That line closed 3.5. The market expected it to be a close game. It was a tough schedule spot for the Lakers, who were in the middle of traveling. LeBron James did not play. Both him and Anthony Davis are listed as questionable tonight, but the line's 7.5, and I would be really surprised if we saw both of those guys play tonight. This is the last game of the road trip for the Lakers. They go home to play the Knicks. And if you're going to rest players, it would be tonight. You want to get those guys, a game off or so they can be fresh, not only for the home crowd, but for a better opponent. Again, both are listed as questionable right now, so I don't really know what to expect. But I think we're going to see at least one of them out tonight. My guess is Davis played the first game. We'll probably see LeBron play the second game tonight. Davis probably out. So this number is only going to get better for San Antonio, but I'm not taking them for the full game. The Spurs are tanking, absolutely, and you can see it pretty clearly in a couple of numbers, which, again, I'm going to look over, and you can read more of these in the written preview if you want to make sure. But let me make sure I get these exactly. Excuse me, but there we go. We have some winners. So go ahead and dump your Twitter username in the chat below. I'll make sure I get you some free stuff this weekend, or, again, we can work something out if you're already in the FTN chat. But as I was saying, the Spurs are tanking, and it's not because they don't have good lineups to play. If you look at games in which Victor Wembanyama plays center, and most of the time he does not, he's the power forward. Zach Collins is the guy who generally plays center for this team. If you have Wembanyama at center and Devin Vassell's playing at all, which, Vassell's their best player, they have a plus 9.2 rating and a pretty decent sample size. And, this next number, a little bit of a smaller sample size because Trey Jones hasn't played most of the season. When you add him, you're looking at a plus 32 net rating. Now, I don't think the Spurs would be the best team in the league if they just played Devin Vassell and Trey Jones together with Wembanyama at the 5. But what it shows me is that there are clearly ways the Spurs could be playing better and trying to win basketball games. They are not. So I have no interest in playing those teams in the first half. But this is a great opportunity to go down to what we call derivative market. So, I refer to full game numbers all the time. And again, as we go back and look, that's 7.5, 234. That's the full game line. But what I like tonight is the first quarter. Again, a derivative market. So, something below the full game line. And those full game lines are really sharp because smart bettors, the guys that are doing this professionally, big money bettors, again, sharps like us, what we're really looking to do is bet into markets that have higher limits. The higher limit you have, the more money you can bet, the more money you can win, especially if you have an edge. But that makes it sharper. The books know how to move them. There's more information there. As you start to go down to the lower levels, what you find is slower adjustments, and a lot of those lines, and part of the reason we call them derivatives is because they're derived from that full game number. Said another way, they don't quite take that full game spread and divide it by 4 to get the quarters, but it is actually pretty close to that. And when that full game number starts to move, these derivative markets are a little bit slower. And put it all together, what that means is there's more value there for us. And I think this is a great spot. One of my favorite bets to make is tanking teams in the first quarters because, the market does a good job at that full game number, but I don't think it's caught up yet to the idea that some of these teams, like the Spurs, come out, play a good first quarter, a good second quarter, and then start to bench their players late. And really a lot of that lead that comes to the favorite happens in the latter stages of the third quarter and early in the fourth quarter as they really start to put the game away. The Spurs are the most profitable team in the NBA in the first quarter. I think they've only lost against the spread 2 or 3 times. That you're looking at an ROI north of 25%. And again, I don't love to bet on trends like that, but what I do find sometimes is it confirms things that you're seeing in other places. Trends can be dangerous. Be wary of anything that goes back too many years. These sports leagues these sports leagues, the NBA especially, almost completely turn over every 3 to 5 years. So if you hear somebody talking about what's happened in the last 15 years, and it's got stuff like it's a Wednesday or the sun, you get some really goofy stuff. But just simple things like first quarter performance against the spread is simple enough and straightforward enough season to season to show us where there are certain holes. And there definitely seems to be value on the Spurs. We'll take them in the first quarter tonight, plus 2.5. This next game up here, I actually have two bets that I like quite a bit here. I think the market is a little slow on this Knicks team and how important Mitchell Robinson is. They're just 5-point underdogs in Phoenix tonight, the total at 232. And Mitchell Robinson is huge. What he does for the Knicks on both ends of the floor is really, truly paramount. Defensively, he is the rim protector, and more importantly, the guy who gets rebounds and keeps the opposing team from getting offensive rebounds themselves. That allows your opponents to generate extra possessions, and a lot of games are swung really on things like that in turnovers. The more you have the ball, the more points you can score, the less points your opponent can score. On offense, Mitchell Robinson does just that himself. He is one of, if not the best offensive rebounder in the league, constantly creating extra possessions for the Knicks, creating extra points, and most importantly, getting the ball into the basket so that the other team has to inbound the ball. It's not just that he scores points. It's easier for teams to get out on fast break after made shots. On makes, you have to take the ball out and then inbound it. That little half a second, 2 seconds, even if, again, you do it super quickly, it gives the defense a chance to reset. Those guys have a chance at least turn around and get down the floor, where on a miss, especially like a long three, say, the ball hits the rim, it's already flying the other direction while the defense's backs is to their own basket. They don't have a chance to turn around and get back. So Robinson is huge, and I really downgrade the Knicks quite a bit. And defensively speaking, I don't know what they're going to do to stop this Phoenix Suns team. Now, this will be just the second game ever that Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker have played together. The first game, a little clunky. It was a loss to the Nets. Shooting was okay. The pace was a little slow, but it was the second night of a back-to-back, so I'm not too concerned. And I'm going to happily back the Phoenix Suns here. I'll take them, not only their team total over 119.5, but also I'll lay the 5 points. I just don't see what the Knicks are going to do to keep them from scoring the ball. So outside of some sort of aberrant shooting performance where, Phoenix is shooting 20-something% from three, and that's the sound of me knocking on wood so that hopefully I haven't just jinxed myself. I think the Suns easily get to 120 and could score as high as 125. So 119.5 plus 100, you see, there is a 118.5. It's minus 115 most places. I think they're overcharging you that 15 cents. So if you have an MGM account, get over there and bet the alt there over 119.5 plus 100. If all you have is the 118, minus 10, minus 15, that's a fine bet. It's a good bet. But over 119.5 plus 100 is a better bet. Minus 5 is good. I would play that out to minus 6, but 5s are just about everywhere. There's a 4.5 I'm seeing right now at minus 115. Again, I'd rather have the 5 at minus 110. That half a point isn't really worth that extra 5 cents. So those are all the bets I have for now. Before quickly we get into Not for Noobs, I'm going to have a sip of water so you don't have to watch me cough again. Now, 5 more games. Again, always like to quickly touch on them so you guys understand some of the angles, and maybe it helps as you're making your own decisions. First up, a game that will finish as the highest closing total in the NBA so far this season. The Pacers are 8.5-point favorites in Washington. All my numbers line up with this. Again, this game could fly over, but we've seen regular season games. The effort really wanes. It's hard for me to expect these teams, again, to push as hard as they need to, but there could be 260, 270 points tonight. I really just don't know what to do here. Again, everything came out pretty close to my numbers. I see a lot of reasons to avoid betting this game. So let's put that one aside. My Philadelphia 76ers are 16-point favorites at home against the Pistons. The total's at 235.5. The Sixers have a game tomorrow night in Charlotte. Joel Embiid probably rests that game and not tonight, which is why you see such a big spread. Again, these teams played on Wednesday. The Sixers won by 18. I see no reason not to expect that again. There's no value in laying 16 points with Philadelphia, and I'm certainly not taking the Pistons, even though, again, my model shows little value. As I talked about earlier, I just don't know if my projections and have enough data into them yet to really trust some of these outlier bad teams. So we'll skip that game. The Orlando Magic, this was -4 when I wrote it up. Everyone from the Celtics looks like they're out tonight. No Porzingis, no Jaylen Brown, no Horford, no Luke Cornett, which means somebody by the name of Nehemiah Queta, yes, that's a person, I just learned about him today, is the only player on Boston that's over 6'8" that's going to be playing tonight. Really a tough matchup for them against Orlando, a team that's beaten them once already this year, playing really great basketball. So this number is moving like crazy. This line's actually down just about everywhere. The few places it has popped up and quickly before coming down again, it has it right around to pick them. Makes sense. It's a horrible spot for the Celtics, but still not value for me on Orlando there. The Atlanta Hawks, 2-point dogs in Toronto. Again, a game that was played on Wednesday. The Raptors won, scoring their most points of the season at 135. Again, had kind of an aberrant three-point shooting night for them. They averaged about 11 made threes. They had 18 the other night. Again, made 18 of their 34. So not just an aberrant volume night, the shooting percentage, I mean, well over 50% there. A really good night for them. And the market just kind of shrugging its shoulders. Again, it was 2.5 points the other night. It's 2 points tonight. I think that tells you everything you need to know. We didn't learn anything in that last game. All my numbers agreed with the price last time, and it does now. It's tough to play in Toronto, but Atlanta's a good matchup here, so should be a fun game. Nothing of value for me to bet. And finally, the Houston Rockets in Memphis, a 3.5 point favorite. The Rockets are. The total sits at 212. Again, another matchup of teams that played on Wednesday. The Rockets won comfortably and the Rockets closed to 10.5 point favorites, won the game fairly comfortably, but only at 8 or 9 points and failed to cover. Desmond Bane was out in that game. And again, we've gone from 10.5 in Wednesday in Houston to now 3.5 tonight in Memphis. That's a 7-point adjustment, which is just too many points for me for the home court. As good as Houston has been, there's not a 7-point difference between Houston and Memphis, which tells me that Desmond Bane is probably playing tonight. If that's the case, all these numbers look right to me. If Desmond Bane is out, kind of like an under, maybe a Grizzlies team total under, don't mind a bet on the Rockets. Should just be a really ugly basketball game. So maybe just skip it all together. But that's it. That's all we've got. Let's go through quickly the picks again. The Pelicans, -7. Again, I would play that out, honestly, to -8. That number is just available just about everywhere as I look. The Spurs first quarter +2.5. And then a couple bets on the Phoenix Suns. Their team total over 119.5 and -5. And of course, as I mentioned, you had to watch me cough. I'm sorry about that. Again, just getting over a cold, but let me pay it back. Go ahead and put a comment down there below with your Twitter handle. I'll reach out with a DM. Make sure you get all my picks that will end up in the FTN Bets Discord chat. Again, if you're already in the FTN Bets Discord, leave the comment anyway. I'll get back to you. We'll think of something fun that we can do. Again, appreciate everybody watching. Be sure you subscribe to the channel and give me a thumbs up. Best of luck. I'll be back on Monday with another edition of Hoops with Noops.